Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. Today, I think we're on number 4 of this series doing some comparisons between the Division 1 and the Division 2. And what's actually pretty interesting is talking about both games is actually good because I think we've come to the point where we're actually arguing about two games in the same franchise. And so it's better than arguing against the entire franchise, in my own opinion, because I think what's happened is a greater appreciation for the Division and the Division 2 is starting to come into light and into perspective because we're starting to see how challenging developing a video game or video games are. I know we take it for granted. We look at the old days, we talk about how games seem to have been better in those times, but then we fail to, basically appreciate the new games that we have that have to actually try to push the envelope, because technology, even though it may have advanced, video games constantly produce this kind of a weird challenge because every single game is so different. Every single game is so, dynamic and I would say in its own sense exclusive, that it provides its own new challenges that its own makers have to face in most cases. So what you're going to see in the next few years in the industry is video games are not going to get easy to make because of this particular complexity. If, say, maybe we were making or churning out iPhones or maybe even consoles, which all have the same standard, the whole same everything, then, that's a whole different case. And so if you look at the Division 1 and the Division 2, they're both two different games made in the same building, basically. But after everything is said and done, we used to always criticize the Division 2 for not holding a candle against the Division 1, but over the course of the last few months, maybe patches, the Division 2 is starting to look very much superior to the Division 1. And today, I wanted to showcase that with one system in the game and a system that is no further than the Ultimates. The Ultimate system was basically this huge super ability that you had that you were basically granted. Now, I have to say that this alt system, depending on how you want to put it, it was a very pretty cool mechanic. I mean, literally, it was part of your skill tree and you could level it up, and you had this one-off skill that had an 800-second cooldown or whatever it is, and it basically could change the game for you and your team. That's pretty much what it did. Included with your active skills, which are skills that you equip and you use, and what we call your passive talents. It was very nice to be able to get these, but your passive talents, you could only choose very limited number of these passive talents. You only had a max of 4 slots, and so you could only choose a specific number. Now, I would go into these talents, but a lot of them in the Division 2, they've actually been translated into talents on gear. So the talent system on the gear is now replacing this particular talent system that we had in the Division 1. So things like there's a talent. Let me just give you one example here so that you can see. Basically, you'll laugh. Tech support. Kill a hostile while any skill is deployed to extend the skill's active duration by 10 seconds. I think we have some other similarities like that as well, but we have a tech-based skill in the Division 2 that's in a backpack, I think. Let me see if I can find it here. I don't think it's called tech support, but it has it's called tech support. It says skill kills increase total skill damage by 25% for 20 seconds. So instead of extending the skill, in this case, it actually improves the damage, which is actually better if you understand what I mean, because on the pieces, you can have skill duration and all kinds of other things to make it better. So let's look at the alts, which are the ultimate skills and what they did. Now, you had the recovery link. This link basically will heal and cure users and nearby allies, and it will revive allies that are in range, and basically automatically triggers on lethal damage when you're not in a group. So when you're solo, this thing will basically res you back, to life. So if you're running Nomad, it was a good way to go. And then you had the tactical link. The tactical link basically enhances your team's damage and weapon performance as well, or maybe just for you. You basically get this crazy RPM. And then you also had what we call the survival link, which will give you basically a base damage buff increase to your team. But you had to trigger these using L1 and R1 if you're on a controller, and I think on a keyboard you just push T, the key T on your keyboard. Now, this system in the Division 1, I think, was removed for the sake of PvP. You know, as much as I love those of you who play PvP, many of you are my buddies and friends. I have to be the first to tell you, because of PvP in this game, we can't have nice things. I believe that if they bring out another Division game, and I know you're not going to like this one, just let me know in the comment section. They should remove PvP from the Division, just and give everybody peace of mind, so that we're not, you know, too disappointed in the devs for not doing much about it. Hey, like I said, you're not going to like this one when I say, I told you, I warned you. I gave you one. You should have just turned the video off. Anyways, now these particular skills in the Division 2 did not show up. Instead, what we got, which were not necessarily a direct replacement, but a different take on what skills and those talents, in a sense, could look like, were specializations and specialization weapons. In the case of the Division 2, we now have 6 of them, and each of them you can don one at a time, just like in the Division 1, but instead they come with a lot more passive abilities that go with them as well. I think this is where this system shines. Now, in my other video, I mentioned how the specializations have evolved and have actually gotten better. They could use some more work. In fact, some people have suggested that over the course of time, they could have just kept adding more passive skills to these specialization trees to keep making them better and giving us something to continue to work towards, which is trying to get the, you know, the specialization points, to level them up. I think that's a good idea for, you know, to further the gameplay loop. But all of these talents are pretty cool in their own right. Now, yes, some specializations are underwhelming, but they don't necessarily mean that they're not, you know, in a sense, useful for their strong points. When you think about how well some of these things actually do work, I think they outclass the alt system from the Division 1. And I will speak specifically to Survivalist, that being my favorite of the 6 specializations. And I know some of you can talk Technician. You would not replace Technician for an alt in the Division 2. Just make that. It's a statement of, in my opinion anyways, I think you will never do that. But I just wanted to make sure I actually emphasize that before I jumped in here. And if you even look at Survivalist, Survivalist has a lot of these passive talents that the game actually comes with that are actually very good. They give you, you know, your team buffs. They give you buffs. They make you a better agent. They complement your play in what the Division is mostly centered around, which is cooperative play, to be able to, you know, basically achieve the goals that you're wanting to achieve. And so with the Survivalist, if it's damage that you want to do, there's a lot of passive damage that you can do with the Survivalist. And this particular talent that actually grants your entire team that extra 10% damage bonus to targets that are with status effect is actually pretty good. In fact, there's an iteration of this as well, which is what's called the Tactical Link talent. Isn't that funny? They gave them very similar names in the Demolitionist as well. And the Demolitionist has another perk where targets that are, you know, basically in range of your group members that are basically close to you are going to be getting 5% damage to targets that are out of cover. So when you look at these tactical links, they are basically icing on the cake to what these skill trees are capable of doing. Now, note that this is not, the same as our skills that we can equip, which, to be very frank, this skill system that we have has been frowned upon because many iterations were removed from the Division 1, but it still did not take away from how fun and unique they can be in their own right. Like, there are some skills that were added to the Division 2 that we would not trade for, say, even, mobile cover in the Division 1. Let me show you guys what mobile cover is. Mobile cover is the bane of everyone's existence, including the developers, because people used to use it to glitch, through missions and glitch through walls. It's a system, for those of you who are new to the Division, who probably don't know where we came from, who are, you're just like, Division 2 is so great. Well, Division 1 has some really cool nostalgic stuff. You could actually drop this thing in the middle of nowhere, and it will basically form a mobile cover. I just hit it twice. I'm still thinking I'm in Division 1. And so I accidentally did that. Now, the flame turret in Division 1 is absolutely more superior than the flame turret in Division 2 because of the way it does work. It auto targets, but they removed that functionality because, like I said again, because of PvP in the Division 1, we couldn't have nice things. I know I'm being a little mean, I know, but yes, that it's exactly how I think about it, and many agents do. So this is what the mobile cover could do. And yeah, we have enough cover elements in the Division, open world. I don't think this was a necessary skill. So this was one of those skills where, depending on where you were, it could be good. Maybe if you were playing, say, Pierre's or whatever it is, sure. I mean, yeah, mobile cover, whatever. But if you look at other things like Sticky Bomb, you look at even your first aid and all that stuff, you can use some of the other systems to kind of mimic their effects as well. You have your Seekers, you have your Pulses in the Division 1 and 2. You also have your Ballistic Shields, which the Ballistic Shields in the Division 1 are actually very good in some instances, but the Division 2's shields and ballistic system does hold its own. So back to the alts versus the specializations, I think the specializations have basically done a very decent job in bringing a passive-based skill system to the agent, making the agent just strong for being an agent. It's one of those power creeps that the development team over the course of time worked into the game that made it very good. One really cool one with the firewall specialization, which I really wish they had taken kind of a little bit more time to actually deal with this specialization. I mean, it was decent when it came out, was that talent where basically your anybody that's pretty much that destroys your armor is lit in flames. I can't remember which it is. And then this armor kit thing that gives you 200% health over 10 seconds. That was also another really good one. What was that one where oh yeah, there it is. On armor break, apply burn to enemies within 5 meters and it's disabled in PvP. See exactly what I mean? You can't have nice things in PvP because a lot of people were running around with this specialization, and if somebody broke their armor, well, they were in flames. And so it's a very cool, fun system in PvE, and we really do enjoy it. And then we go to one of the most superior specializations that really does make specializations worth it on every turn, and that's the technician. And that's because of how versatile it is. Now, let me ask everyone in the Division 2 that is telling me that Division 1 is better in terms of alt, would you replace the technician specialization for having the ability to do a one-off event, right, of any of these kinds that has a cooldown that is this long? I'm waiting. That's what's happened. The video didn't cut off. I know you guys were thinking, is he still? I'm still here. It's not even a fair trade. It's a thing where maybe you can argue that the alts should have come to the Division 2, but to what purpose are they going to serve? Are you trying to find maybe something that is like the survival link? Let me see what it is. The survival link basically is this one that basically if you guys get this huge health boost and your group members can take lethal damage and they're basically invincible. Well, we can replicate that in the Division 2, and we don't have to sacrifice equipping some skill, nor do we have to deter anything. We have a chess piece here, or a few chess pieces here. One of them is a 0F chess piece. It's perfectly unbreakable. This can give you your armor back. Another one is a tardigrade armor system. This is a chess piece that is an exotic chess piece that on breaking your a tank can wear it. It's not. I don't have it here. I put it in my other stash items because I get a lot of those chess pieces. Anybody on your team that basically loses their armor basically regains about 80% of your armor in the team. So you are getting this passive buff to your team, and it does have a cooldown as well, about 45 seconds. So if you really say, okay, well, that actually, makes me lose one talent, but you're playing your role and you're doing your job as a tank or as a buffer to the team. Now, if in the case, say, you don't have a tardigrade armor system, you also have the Vanguard chess piece, which is really ideal for a tank. If you deploy your shield, it makes it invulnerable for 5 seconds and grants 50% of your armor as bonus armor to all other allies for 20 seconds. You can also add your backpack using galvanize, which is also a very interesting, talent as well, and you can grant 40% of your armor bonus if you apply these specific status effects to your enemies, and you can grant your team about 90% of your armor with a cooldown. Yes, but with galvanize, you're basically just going nuts. I mean, it's literally giving your team that armor buff without having too much of the risk of the cooldown. I genuinely believe that the specialization system in the Division 2, even though it's not the most unique thing in the world, even though for many it may not seem impressive, I think it was a fair, if not in a case, we got a deal from this trade-off. The deal did not necessarily clear, the check didn't necessarily clear till like patch, title update or whatever that we called it in the Division 2. Then it didn't clear till about title update. I think it was like 1.8 or whatever it is, where they actually started making all the specializations have, you know, the ability to grant you extra weapon damage bonuses, which if you look at the alts in the Division 1, you know, you're not getting any of these other weapon bonuses if you're using, say, your survival link, your survival link or recovery link. Only the tactical link was able to give you that 30% damage buff and, you know, give you 50% RPM. The only thing that we are not able to necessarily replicate for every member of our team is this particular, you know, RPM buff and the reload speed buff. The RPM buff, I think, was something the developers shied away from at every cost. You know, RPM was such a big deal in the Division 1, and for some strange reason, a lot of it did not show up in the Division 2 as, you know, as a talent or as some kind of a perk, and I don't know why they shied away from it. But when it comes to the reload speed buffs and all of that, man, there are ways for you to replicate stuff like that. If I were to rock, say, this gunner specialization, right? If I got the gunner specialization where my reloads are basically increased by 50% at every given time, right? Because of this talent called Coupler, it says every third reload is 50% faster. And I use a talent from my vest, like the braced talent. The braced talent is a weapon handling talent. There it is. So while in cover, weapon handling is increased by 45%. My LMG reload speeds and other reload speeds continue to receive this buff, though it is conditional to me staying in cover, but it doesn't have, nor is it subject to a cooldown in that sense. So if at the point I'm getting all of this reload speed and it's stacking to the max possible effect, I can run a very strong damage dealing weapon, and I can replicate the benefits of having, you know, that buff to my entire and total damage parameter in the Division 2. While in the Division 1, I could only enjoy it for a very short period of time for a cooldown. So in my opinion, I think the better system is the system that the Division 2 has finally evolved to. For us to say that the developers did not listen to the Division 1 is no longer necessarily a fair critique. I think what they were trying to do, and this is just my opinion, was to find ways to make these systems fresh and give them a different adaptation in the second game. I think it was a decent try. I don't think it was, you know, for somebody like me to say that, you know, it's coming from a place where I've been looking into what game development is. And I think a lot of the things that we take for granted, we don't understand the complexity. Somebody asked a question on Twitter. They said, you know, what are the most underrated or unappreciated aspects of the Division 2? And I said the complexity. Even the Division 1 has that complexity, but I think the Division 2 basically stacks on top of that even more because of the much diverse gameplay system and diverse build paradigms. We actually have more build diversity in Division 2. I'll come to that in a different video. I know someone's going to say, never. It's okay. We'll look at it, you know, in a more detailed look. But if you say something like, say somebody is running, you know, say Firewall, right? And they're running a tank build. And everybody in their team, you know, is depending on them to keep their team alive, and say they're running Perfect Vanguard, right? So they pop open their shield, give everybody in their team that armor boost, and then at the same time, they get galvanized, and they also apply this status effect to people. And in that same team, somebody else is wearing maybe an unbreakable chest piece. And that unbreakable chest piece is also going to proc, and then maybe someone else is running tardigrade because it's like, we're not going to die here today. We're all going to just, you know, basically continue to bump each other up, and we're going to be a team, a synergized team. Now, many people don't build and run like this, But I think that there are opportunities to do things like this for people to coordinate their builds, but usually we don't really pay too much attention into the detail of that stuff. But can you imagine how much programming and how much coding and how much gameplay development goes into something like that? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not easy at all. It is something that is a feat of, I would just say I've never seen anything like it in any game. And I think it speaks for itself in the way the systems are. Because if there was another game that could do this, do it very well, and if, say, there was a standard made out of video games like this, the Division 2 will probably be on the bottom tier of the list if somebody else was doing it better. But for now, we're just in a place where this franchise is the only franchise that has been willing to take the hit on starting out something in quote new and continuing to further it down the road. So at the end of the day, nonetheless, like I said, or usually say in my videos, is preference is still a big deal. You might not care about all of this and still say that a Division 1 still appeals to you, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, if we're arguing about which Division game is better, I think we're in a good spot, man. Anyways, this is exciting for me. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I appreciate it. You can join the Gaming Daddy community by hitting the subscribe button if you want. If you don't want, that's fine too. I just enjoy doing this and I enjoy engaging, in conversation with you guys. So that means a lot more to me. Thank you very much for your time and audience. Hopefully we'll see you in another video. Peace.